The research station Kepler's Dream floated quietly in the darkness of space. Inside, 12 different alien species worked together, their strange forms moving between glowing computer screens and humming machines. The station was humanity's first joint project with the Galactic Council, a place where Earth's smartest people could learn from civilizations thousands of years older. Dr. Lee Hanna sat at her workstation, watching numbers scroll across her monitor. She was one of only 3 humans on the entire station, and after 6 months, she still felt amazed to be working alongside beings from distant stars. The Zelkari moved on, 6 legs, and spoke in musical chirps. The Vorthok had blue skin and could see colors humans couldn't even imagine. The Mir were made of living crystal and communicated through light patterns. All of them were much smarter than humans. Or so they claimed. Another quiet shift, muttered Park Jun from the engineering console nearby. He was a short, stocky man who kept the station's systems running. Like all humans, he had to work twice as hard to prove himself among these ancient races. Kim Mira, their security chief, walked past carrying her daily patrol report. She was tall and serious, always watching for problems. The other species found human paranoia amusing, but they kept her around anyway. That was when the deep space sensor started screaming. Lee Hanna's screen exploded with red warning lights. Numbers jumped wildly as something massive sent signals through space. Around the control room, every alien suddenly went very, very still. "What is that?" Lee asked, her fingers flying over the keyboard. The signal was coming from the Crimson Void, a section of space that had been marked off limits for 3,000 years. No one talked about what was in there. When humans asked questions, the older species just said it was dangerous and changed the subject. Commander Veltar, the 6-legged Zelkari, in charge of the station, rushed to the main display. His musical voice was high and scared. "Impossible. The beacon should not activate. It has been silent for millennia." "What beacon?" Park Jun asked, but the commander was already backing away from the screen. Lee's computer finished translating the signal. The message was in a dead language, older than any current civilization. Her translation program struggled with the ancient words, but the meaning was clear enough. "The hunger wakes. All light fades. Someone, anyone, please help us." Around the control room, the alien crew members were doing something Lee had never seen before. They were all moving toward the exits. The brave Vorthok warriors, who had faced space pirates, were trembling. The wise Mir elders, who had lived for centuries, were flashing urgent red warning colors. Even the tiny Squeep, who were usually curious about everything, were hiding under their workstations. "Evacuation Protocol 7, Commander," Veltar announced, his voice shaking. "All personnel to emergency pods. We leave within the hour." "Wait," Lee said, standing up from her chair. "Evacuation. Someone's asking for help." The commander's 6 eyes looked at her like she was insane. "Dr. Lee, your species does not understand. That signal comes from the Crimson Void. Nothing good lives there. Nothing good has ever lived there." Park Jun was studying the sensor data, frowning at his screen. "These energy readings are massive. Whatever sent this signal has power sources we can't even measure." Kim Mira joined them, her security training making her analyze the situation. "The signal's been repeating for 3 hours now. If something's in trouble, it's been in trouble for a while." The Vorthok science officer, whose blue skin had turned pale white, spoke in rapid clicks. "The humans do not comprehend. Every species learns of the Crimson Void when they join the Council. It is forbidden space. Those who enter do not return." "But someone's still alive in there," Lee insisted. "They're calling for help." Commander Veltar made a sound like breaking glass, which meant extreme distress in his language. "Dr. Lee, in 3,000 years, 47 different species have detected that beacon. 47 expeditions were sent to investigate. None returned. The void consumes all who enter. Around them, alien crew members were already packing their personal belongings, moving with quick, nervous energy. Their different forms all showed the same emotion: terror. Not the normal fear of danger, but something deeper. Something written into their very genes that screamed at them to run. Lee looked at her two human colleagues. Park was still studying the technical data, his engineer's mind trying to understand the impossible energy signatures. Kim was checking her sidearm. Even though everyone knew weapons would be useless against whatever could destroy 47 different expeditions, we should at least investigate, Lee said quietly. Maybe the other species missed something. The mere elder nearest to them flashed brilliant orange patterns, which their translator rendered as, "The young species does not understand survival. This is why they will not live long among the stars." Within 2 hours, every alien on the station was gone. Emergency pods launched toward safer systems, carrying beings who had lived for centuries and seen wonders beyond human imagination. They all fled from a simple distress call, their ancient wisdom telling them that some things were too dangerous to face. Only 3 humans remained on Kepler's dream, staring at a signal from the crimson void and wondering why they weren't running to. The research ship Persistence moved slowly through space toward the crimson void. Lee Hanna sat at the science station, watching her instruments go crazy with readings that shouldn't exist. Park Jun worked at the engineering controls, muttering under his breath as he turned off safety system after safety system. Kim Mira stood at the weapons console, knowing her guns would be useless, but checking them anyway. They had stolen the ship 3 days ago. Well, not really stolen. The alien crew had abandoned it, along with everything else, when they evacuated the station. The humans just borrowed it to investigate the distress signal that had terrified an entire galactic outpost. "Navigation computer is fighting me every kilometer," Park said, wiping sweat from his forehead. "It keeps trying to turn us around. The safety programs think we're flying into a star or something." "Maybe we should listen to it," Kim said, but she didn't really mean it. All 3 of them felt the same strange pull forward. While every other intelligent species in the galaxy ran away, the humans felt curious. What was so dangerous that civilizations thousands of years old wouldn't even talk about it? Lee's sensors began picking up something impossible ahead of them. "I'm getting readings, but they don't make sense. There's something huge out there. Really huge." The empty black space of the crimson void began to show its secrets. What they had thought was just empty space between stars was actually something much stranger. A massive structure appeared on their screens, so big it made planets look like tiny dots. "That's not natural," Park whispered, staring at the readings. "Someone built that thing." It was a sphere, but not just any sphere. It was bigger than Earth's orbit around the sun. The surface was covered in what looked like cities, and forests and oceans, all wrapped around a dying red star at the center. A whole world built inside a giant ball, with the star providing light and heat. But something was wrong with it. Large sections of the sphere were black, not the black of space, but a deeper black that seemed to eat light itself. The darkness was spreading across the surface like some kind of infection. "It's a Dyson sphere," Lee said in amazement. "Someone built a shell around their entire star system. The engineering required for something like this." Kim was looking at different readings on her tactical display. "We're not the first ones here. Look at all this debris." Space around the giant sphere was full of broken ships. Dozens of them, maybe hundreds. Each one was from a different species, built with different technology. Some of the wrecks looked ancient, others seemed newer. 47 expeditions, Park remembered the commander's words. All those ships tried to help whoever sent the distress signal. "And they all failed," Kim added grimly. "But look at the blast patterns on those ships. They weren't destroyed in battle. The damage shows they left in a hurry, like they were running away from something." The Persistence moved closer to the sphere. Through the front windows, they could see the strange black infection more clearly now. It wasn't just darkness, it was moving, flowing across the surface of the sphere like liquid, but liquid that ate everything it touched. Where it passed, the cities and forests disappeared, leaving only emptiness behind. The distress signal is coming from inside, Lee reported, her voice quiet with awe and fear. There are still life signs in the uninfected areas. Someone's alive in there. Park checked their ship's shields and power systems. Whatever that black stuff is, it's not showing up as any kind of energy or matter our sensors recognize. It's like it exists outside normal physics. Kim studied the tactical data from the destroyed ships around them. Every species that came here saw this and turned around. Their crews probably took one look at that spreading darkness and decided it wasn't worth the risk. The three humans looked at each other. They should be terrified. Any sane person would turn the ship around and fly back to safe space. The evidence was right in front of them. Dozens of expeditions had failed, and something impossible was eating an entire world. But instead of fear, they felt something else: curiosity, determination, the stubborn human refusal to give up when someone needed help. Their mistake was giving up too easily, Lee said, downloading everything they could learn about the sphere's structure. Maybe we can find a way in that the others missed. Or maybe we're about to become wreck number 48, Kim replied. But she was already plotting a course toward the sphere's surface. Park activated their communication systems. If anyone's still listening to that distress signal, this is the human ship Persistence. We're coming to get you out. The signal that came back was weak and filled with static, but the words were clear. Humans, the young species from the third arm, you should not have come. The devourer grows stronger. Soon there will be nothing left to save. Let us worry about that, Kim transmitted back. Just stay alive until we get there. The Persistence approached the dying sphere, three humans flying toward, a danger so terrible that every other intelligent species in the galaxy considered it certain death. Behind them, the wreckage of 47 failed rescue missions drifted in the darkness, silent witnesses to the folly of hope. Ahead lay something that ate light itself, and somewhere within it, the last survivors of a dying civilization waited for help that logic said would never come. The Persistence found an opening in the sphere's outer shell, a wound in the ancient metal where the black infection had eaten away the surface. Park Jun guided their ship through carefully, flying between twisted pieces of what had once been a magnificent city. The passage was barely wide enough for their vessel. Hull sensors are picking up atmosphere on the other side, he reported. Whatever built this place, they breathed something close to what we can handle. Inside the sphere was like flying through the ruins of heaven. Massive structures stretched in all directions, held in place by artificial gravity that defied everything. Humans knew about physics. Gardens that had once been beautiful now lay withered and black. Cities that could have housed billions stood empty and dark, but not completely empty. Life signs ahead, Leanna announced from her science station, faint, but definitely there, and they single quotes, big, really big. Kim Myra checked her weapons one more time, knowing they would be useless against whatever could survive inside this dying world. Defined big, 20 meters tall, maybe more, moving slowly, like they're injured or exhausted. They found the survivors in what had once been a great plaza surrounded by crystal towers. The beings were unlike anything in the galactic databases. They stood on two legs like humans, but that was where the similarity ended. Their skin looked like living gemstone, changing colors with their emotions. They had 4 arms and heads that were longer and more elegant than any human face. Even dying and exhausted, they were beautiful. The leader approached their ship as they landed. Through the communication system, his voice sounded like music, mixed with wind chimes. I am Elder Architect Lith Anu. You should not have come, young ones. The devourer will consume your ship as it has consumed all the others. Lee stepped outside, wearing her environmental suit but keeping the helmet open. The air was thin, but breathable. We received your distress signal. We came to help. The elder's crystal skin shifted to deep blue, which seemed to indicate sadness. Help. 47 expeditions have answered our call over the centuries. All learned the truth and fled. We do not blame them. To stay is death. Park joined them, carrying his engineering scanner. What is this devourer? Some kind of weapon. Not a weapon, another architect replied, her voice like silver bells ringing. A living thing. It feeds on energy, on consciousness, on hope itself. We built this sphere as a sanctuary, but we trapped ourselves with our own creation. Kim studied the black infection spreading slowly across the far walls of the plaza. Up close, she could see it wasn't just darkness. It moved with purpose, flowing, like oil, but with an intelligence behind it. Sometimes she thought she saw faces in the black mass, screaming silently. Where did it come from? She asked. Elder Lethaniu's color shifted to gray, indicating deep shame. We created it, long ago. An experiment in converting dark matter to usable energy. But the process created consciousness where none should exist. Hunger where satisfaction was impossible. It has been eating our world for 1,000 years. Lee looked around at the dying civilization. Thousands of architects moved slowly through the plaza, their crystal skin dull with exhaustion. Children clung to their parents, their colors flickering weakly. How many of you are left? Perhaps 10,000, scattered across the few safe areas remaining. Once we numbered in the billions. Park was studying his scanner readings, frowning at the impossible data. This thing feeds on energy. What happens if you cut the power to everything? We tried that centuries ago, the elder replied sadly. It simply began feeding on us directly. Our life force, our thoughts, our dreams. We can only hide and hope it grows tired of our taste. Kim walked to the edge of the safe zone, where the black infection had stopped spreading for now. She could feel something pressing against her mind, cold and hungry. The other expeditions that came here, what did they learn that made them leave? The truth about how to stop it. Another architect sang mournfully. There is a way. At the heart of our sphere, surrounding our central star, lies a weapon. A device that can create a controlled stellar collapse. The energy release would destroy the devourer completely. Lee felt hope rising in her chest. Then why haven't you used it? Elder Lethanu's colors shifted to deep purple, indicating great sorrow. Because someone must go to the very center of the sphere to activate it manually. The weapon requires 17 minutes of continuous operation to charge. Those 17 minutes would be spent in the heart of the devourer's domain, where it is strongest. Park understood immediately. It's a suicide mission. Whoever goes down there won't come back. Precisely. And we architects are not warriors. We are builders, thinkers, creators of beautiful things. We cannot force ourselves to walk into certain death, even to save our people. Kim nodded slowly. And every other species that came here learned this and decided the cost was too high. 47 different civilizations, the elder confirmed. All chose preservation of their own people over the salvation of ours. We understand their choice. It is logical. It is wise. It is what any sensible beings would do. The three humans looked at each other. Around them, the last survivors of an ancient civilization waited with patient hopelessness, their crystal skin dim with acceptance of their fate. How long do you have? Lee asked quietly. Days, perhaps weeks. The devourer grows stronger as it consumes more of our world. Soon there will be nowhere left to hide. Kim stared at the spreading darkness, feeling its alien hunger pressing against her thoughts. Show us this weapon system. Show us exactly what needs to be done. The plan was simple and terrible. Lee Hanna would stay with the architects to prepare their evacuation while Park, June and Kim Mira descended to the sphere's core. The architects had shown them detailed maps of the route, marking every safe passage and warning zone. What should have been a 3-hour journey would take them through the heart of the Devourer's domain. Remember, Elder Lethanu warned them, his crystal skin flashing anxious yellow patterns. The Devourer does not just consume matter and energy, it feeds on minds. It will show you visions, make you believe lies, turn your own thoughts against you. This is how it has stopped every other expedition. Kim checked her equipment one final time. Her weapons were useless, but she carried them anyway. Sometimes having something familiar helped when everything else went crazy. How do we fight something that attacks our minds? You cannot fight it, the elder replied sadly. You can only endure it. Hold tight to who you are and why you came here. Park loaded the activation codes into his portable computer. The weapon system was so old that it needed manual input at 17 different stages. If we get separated down there, can one person handle the activation alone? Yes, but it is much harder. The Devourer will be trying to stop you with everything it has. The two humans entered their shuttle and began the descent toward the sphere's core. At first, everything seemed normal. The passages were empty but intact, lit by emergency power that had somehow survived for centuries. Their instruments worked fine, and they could talk to each other without problems. That changed when they reached the first infected zone. The walls around them began to shift and flow. What had looked like normal metal corridors suddenly seemed organic, like they were flying through the inside of some massive creature. The lights flickered and changed color, becoming dim red like old blood. Sensors are going crazy, Park reported, his voice tight with stress. I'm reading impossible energy signatures, temperature readings that can't be right. Kim felt something cold touch her mind, like fingers made of ice water reaching into her thoughts. It knows we're here. I can feel it watching us. The visions started small. Kim saw movement in the corners of her eyes, shadows that shouldn't exist in the artificial light. Park heard voices whispering his name, calling to him from empty corridors. They pushed forward, following the route the architects had shown them. Then the real attack began. Kim suddenly saw her family's faces on the walls around them. Her parents, her younger brother, her best friend from school. All of them were screaming, their faces melting like wax. Fire consumed the streets of Seoul where she had grown up, and alien ships filled the sky. It's not real, she whispered to herself, but the visions felt completely real. She could smell the smoke, hear the explosions, feel the heat of the flames. Park was fighting his own battle. The shuttle's instruments showed him Earth exploding over and over again, the planet cracking apart while humanity's colonies burned. He saw his engineering team from the station, all dead because he had abandoned his post to come on this mission. Kim, talk to me, he called out, his hands shaking as he tried to pilot through corridors that kept changing shape. I'm here, she replied, though her voice sounded far away. The thing is showing me everyone I've ever cared about dying. It's trying to make me believe this mission is pointless. Same here. It's saying humanity will fall no matter what we do. They pushed deeper into the sphere's core, where the passages became stranger and more dangerous. Gravity stopped working normally. Sometimes they flew upside down, sometimes sideways. The shuttle's engine strained against forces that shouldn't exist. The Devourer's mental attacks grew stronger. It showed Kim a vision of herself as an old woman, alone and forgotten, dying in a hospital bed while nobody came to visit. It whispered that she was a failure, that everyone who had ever trusted her had been disappointed. Park saw himself trapped forever in the sphere's core, pushing the same button over and over for eternity while the weapon failed to fire. He saw the architects dying anyway, their crystal skin turning black as the Devourer consumed them one by one. We're almost there, Park gasped, checking their position against the map. Just 2 more kilometers to the weapon chamber. That was when the shuttle's engines died. Emergency power flickered on, but they were losing altitude fast. Park fought with the controls as they spiraled toward a platform near the core chamber. I can't restart the main engines. Something's wrong with the power coupling. They crashed hard onto the metal platform, the shuttle's hull cracking from the impact. Kim dragged herself out of her seat, tasting blood from where she had bitten her tongue. Park was already at the engine compartment, his scanners showing massive damage to the power systems. The field generator is failing. Without it, the influence will tear the shuttle apart in minutes. Kim looked at the map display. They were close to the weapon chamber, but not close enough to reach it before their protection failed. I can hold the generator together manually, Park said quietly. Keep the field stable while you reach the weapon system. Park, no, that's a death sentence. So is failing the mission. He was already pulling on his environmental suit. Get to that chamber, Kim. Make this count. Kimura ran through the core chamber while Park Jun sealed himself inside the shuttle's engine room. Behind her, she could hear him working frantically to keep the field generator running. The protective barrier was the only thing keeping the Devourer from crushing their minds completely. Field is holding. Park's voice crackled over the radio. You've got maybe 20 minutes before it fails completely. The weapon chamber was a massive sphere of black metal, covered in ancient controls. In the center, a column of pure energy, connected to the dying star above. The architects had built this device to be their salvation, but they had never been brave enough to use it. Kim found the control panel and plugged in Park's computer. The activation sequence began immediately, but it would take 17 long minutes to charge the weapon. 17 minutes of standing in the heart of the Devourer's domain while it tried everything to stop her. The first vision hit her like a physical blow. She saw the evacuation shuttles above, filled with architect refugees, exploding one by one. Lee Hanna's voice screamed over the radio that the rescue was failing, that everyone was dying because of Kim's foolishness. Not real, Kim muttered, forcing herself to focus on the control panel. The first sequence was complete. 16 minutes remaining. The Devourer tried a different approach. It showed her a vision of herself as a hero, returning to Earth to cheering crowds. Medals and honors, her name in history books, a statue built in her honor. All she had to do was leave now, and she could have fame and glory forever. Kim laughed bitterly. You don't know humans very well, do you? The visions became more desperate. Her brother calling her name, begging her to come home. Her parents crying at her funeral. Her friends forgetting her completely, living happy lives, while she died alone in the dark. But Kim had learned something about herself in these terrible minutes. The Devourer could show her anything, make her believe any lie, but it couldn't change who she was deep inside. She was the security chief who stayed at her post when everyone else ran. She was the human who walked toward danger when it needed to be faced. 10 minutes remaining. She called over the radio. Park, how are you doing? Silence. Park, respond. Still nothing. Kim realized with cold certainty that the field generator had probably failed minutes ago. Park was dead, consumed by the Devourer while keeping the barrier running long enough for her to reach the weapon. The knowledge hit her harder than any vision. Park had died so she could stand here, and she was going to honor that sacrifice. Above them, Lee Hanna was loading the last of the architect children onto the evacuation shuttles. Elder Lee Thanu sang mournful harmonies as his ancient people prepared to leave their dying world behind. All refugees aboard, Lee reported over the radio. Kim, we're ready to go the moment you fire that weapon. 5 minutes, Kim replied, watching the energy levels climb on the ancient display. The weapon was almost ready to unleash the power of a controlled star collapse. The Devourer made one final attempt to stop her. It attacked her mind directly, trying to tear apart her consciousness and leave her as an empty shell. Kim felt her memories being pulled away, her sense of self dissolving into the hungry darkness. But humans had something the Devourer had never encountered before. Pure, stubborn refusal to give up. Kim held on to one simple thought. Someone needed help, and she was going to provide it. Everything else could disappear, but that core truth remained unshakable. 1 minute, she announced, her hand on the final activation switch. The energy column in front of her began to glow brighter. The ancient weapon was preparing to turn their artificial sun into a brief supernova, creating a wave of pure light that would burn away the living darkness forever. Fire in 10 seconds, Kim called to the evacuation fleet. Get clear of the sphere. Kim, Lee's voice came over the radio. There's no escape pod down there. You won't survive the weapon discharge. Kim smiled, thinking of Park's sacrifice and the 10,000 architect refugees who would live because of this moment. I know. Take care of them, Lee. Make sure their story gets told. She pushed the final switch. The weapon fired, and for 17 seconds, a new star burned at the heart of the dying sphere. The artificial sun became a supernova in miniature, its light racing outward in waves of pure energy. Where the light touched the devourer's darkness, the hungry entity simply ceased to exist. Its screams echoed through dimensions as 1,000 years of consuming evil was burned away in moments. The sphere itself began to collapse, its structure unable to survive the death of its central star. But the light had done its work. The refugees escaped in their shuttles, while the ancient prison of their people dissolved into stardust behind them. In the days that followed, the galaxy learned that 3 humans had accomplished what 40 other expeditions had failed to do. They had walked into certain death to save people they had never met before, from a species they barely understood. Elder Lethonu sang a new song for his people, a melody that would be remembered as long as architects existed. He called it the Song of Those Who Do Not Run, and it told the story of a species so strange that they faced the fire when everyone else fled, and across the galaxy, when new dangers emerged and rational beings calculated the odds of survival, a few humans would always step forward with the most dangerous question in any language. So, what exactly are we dealing with?